Hello, my dear audiences, my dear friends, dear fellow Californians. Welcome to the show. Jack Chow is your host with G&E TV. Trying very hard, every time when possible, me and my team putting together information that is positive. What my take is to imbue our society, to imbue our room of discussion for some references. Right now, we're facing a big challenge. The challenge being, we're talking about this AB bill, AB 1726, which is, to me, very confusing. And the good part is that there are lots of people, lots of different voices are being heard. And I would say, once again, with lots of emphasis, I owe my appreciation to lots of supporters in this vocal business. Led by a wonderful leader, Huff, my good friend. She is, well, I used to think her as an image of being a beautiful wife. Now she is a leader also. Mm-hmm. And for that, Mei, if you happen to be in front of your TV, here's my appreciation on behalf of my audiences, right? With me, the proud husband of her, without mentioning Bob Huff, Senator of California. Bob, welcome to the show.
Great to be with you, Jack.
Thank you very much. And made me excited that you come, and made me also a hard few hours at home doing homework. Mm-hmm. Because it's really costs a lot of brain to think about the logic of this bill, the background of the bill, the content of the bill, the nature of the bill, so on and so forth, and the representation part of the bill. Mm-hmm. So it is very confusing now. So with you, I believe that you will walk me into the darkness to see if there's anything there need to be found.
I will do my best.
All right, I know you will. Thank you very much for that. And by nature and by content, two categories, by nature and by content, by contents, what is the bill of 1726, please?
So AB 1726 would take the population that currently is found under the API designation, meaning Asian Pacific Islander.
All right.
They lump all the Asians in there, including Pacific Islanders, and we have that number reported within the state of California. They would take that and disaggregate it. So break it into its different components, whether that's Chinese, Korean, Filipino, Japanese, Hmong, on down the list.
I see.
So and then it would use that data for education and medical without being specific about it, but healthcare related and education-wise were the codes that they were looking to make these changes for.
I see. So by nature, it is something like a law, or only a thought, only a concept, or a culture that is moving?
Well, a similar bill came to us last year and we didn't think about it. Usually, I'm a data guy. I think it makes sense. Different people have different actions, have different abilities, all that. So getting more data on subset of a group that is very diverse seemed to make sense. But then you have a lot of my Chinese friends that say, hey, wait a second, isn't this a back door to SCA 5 or affirmative action?
Exactly.
And then a light bulb came on. I said, you may have a point there I hadn't really considered. Why, gathering data is not bad, it's what you do with the data that can be a problem, right?
Yeah. SCA 5, thank God you mentioned that, and also affirmative action are the two subjects that I later I'm going to touch base with you. But right now, looking at that, to me, sitting on this job though, I know that it is always necessary when there is a call, there is a need of certain things, the bill comes out. It is rather the opposite. There is a bill that comes out and people trying very hard to find out what pushes it, where the need is. So my question is, you know what I mean, that to which category does this situation apply to, please?
Well, it's a good question. Breaking it up the way they do is not the problem. It's, again, how you apply that. They're not applying that U.S. Census data to education or health, but this bill specifically said once they get that data, they would to health and education. So that's where the problem comes in. So there's always the stated reason why somebody is doing something, which is more of a salesman telling you why this car is the best for you, versus what the bill actually does. Like which car actually works best for you rather than what somebody's
sure, of course.
trying
Let's
to sell
peel
you.
the onion layer by layer. This is layer number one, right? So if you say if they say the bill writer, Mr. Bonafide, whatever. If he says that there's a need, it is necessary. Why don't we see the same necessity of Caucasians? Because you can always go into detailed categories, say Anglo-Saxons, right? Say Scandinavians, right? And say Jews, say Germans, say whoever. And the category goes into kind of like a pinpoint details.
Right.
So why don't we see that as a necessity, please?
Well, and that was one of the first questions that made sense to me is, I don't have a good answer for that. Why aren't we breaking it? Because if the Asian community are a bunch of different silos that make up one grouping, certainly the Caucasian community is too, or the Latino community.
Sure.
Argentina is different from El Salvador, is different from Mexico, right? Or even Cuba or Spain. So you have all these other categories that could certainly benefit from having disaggregated data, but somehow the Asian community was blessed because we're only going to pick on the Asians and help them by getting this bigger, scrutiny on who composes the API community and where they are and how they're doing.
But the banner is equalization, right? The banner is to be fair. If you want to be so fair, why don't you leave the Caucasian in blank? Speaking of Hispanic, right? Speaking of Latinos have their own subcategories too, and Hispanic have their own subcategories too. Why don't we do it like a dictionary, and we do it once for all, be fair to everybody? If they want to call it, or somebody want to call it, or at least the writer want to call it, this is being fair. Any answer, or still something you don't have an answer?
Well, some of my Chinese friends who were in the office of the author asking that question said, well, they would be open to those amendments, or they open to do that, because that would be the best. But in the meantime, this is what they're doing. So there's always the stated, we'll work with that down the road, but right now we want to start here. And again, that begs the question, well, why are we starting with the Chinese or the Asian community? Because generally in the past, when we have gathered data, it hasn't been good for the Asian community.
All right. Well, thank you for that explanation. That sounds to be so far the best I could get. And also that reminds me of last year, the year before, over SA5. I recall that busy summer, you and me, everybody, we get very busy talking about it. Luckily, we defeated, quote unquote, for a time being, for that little moment. Yet, how do you see somebody say this is the version, another version of SA5? So is that false or true, please?
Well, and that's what some of my Chinese friends had raised. They feel that AB 1726 is a backdoor approach to implementing affirmative action or to accomplish what they were trying to do with SCA 5 and failed. And often when it comes to Sacramento or the legislature, you have to look at what is the philosophical viewpoint that people are trying to move to. And right after we defeated SCA 5, you had both the Democrat Senate leader and the Democrat Assembly leader say their highest priorities were to tackle affirmative action. That was SCA 5. They just lost it. It still remains at the top of their consciousness. So we had another bill this year that popped up that would create more slots at the university. And it had some language in there that said about they would save those slots for the underrepresented. Well, what does underrepresented mean? It's not Chinese, they're overrepresented.
Okay,
so we worked with the author to get that language struck so that wouldn't be another way around. But 1726, I believe it is another way. Once you start getting data, and let's say that the Laotians or the Tongans or other people that are into the API right now group, if you see that they are underrepresented at the university level or college level, or maybe on the health, they have higher diabetes, then you're going to start treating them differently. I don't have a problem on the health. I think that makes sense. But when it comes to education, once again, if they're getting a higher priority within the API subset, that means somebody else is going to be getting lesser priority. So you have to look at who's overrepresented, quote unquote, who's underrepresented, And I guarantee you the Chinese are not underrepresented, they're overrepresented, so that's why we believe it will be at their expense.
Honestly, sir, I like your statement very much. And this is not only a statement that represents some kind of healthy concept, because this is where exactly we are lost. So let's take a very short moment. When we come back, we'll exactly pick up about why we say that we, at least California, is lost. So with me today, my good friend, my backbone friend, Senator of California, Bob Huff, and of course, not present today is another fighter, Huff, who made this arrangement, the whole thing. And for that, we owe appreciation for leadership in the movement, in the visit all the way, fly over to Sacramento to vocal out, right, for to go against the AB 1726. For the nature, for the time being, for everything of the 8 to 1726, we will still talk about when we come back, so stay with us. Hello, dear folks. Welcome back to the show, dear ladies and gentlemen. If you care about California, especially when you happen to be somebody's parents, though, you better be vigilant to what we're talking about. We are talking about a bill, B-I-L-L, not the one in your pocket. I'm talking about the one that governs you, that will govern you. AB Assembly Bill 1726, to which we question ponderously, right? With me trying to get possible answer to the question that goes in ponderous is my good friend, my backbone friend to the community, Bob Huff, the Senator of California. Thank you, sir, for coming, and once again, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jack.
Okay. Questions are so listed so much. I have 4 pages of it. I have to be concise on it and try to make sure that question, whenever a question is asked, it gets answered, rather than I ask 100 questions, so I waste the time, right? Okay, now you see, and I see lots of people say that affirmative action, right, SA 5, AB 1726, they have a lot in common. Or some say, no, they are totally, well, apple and orange. So to you, are they something in common, or do they share in common? What do they share in common, please?
Yes, I do think they have, everything is in common. First of all, affirmative action is making decisions based on race or country of origin or gender to sort of right the wrongs of the past, right? They believe that with affirmative action, you can give preference to one group to help elevate them when they may have been pushed down in the past. So that's the overall concept of it. SCA 5 was going to overturn Prop 209, which outlawed in California. The people, through an initiative process, said directly, we do not want to use affirmative action, we want it to be a merit-based system. So now that the legislative balance of power has shifted since Prop 209 passed, there's been a repeated effort to overturn Prop 209 or to reinstate affirmative action. SCA 5 was one of many that had tried before but hadn't passed. But that one got traction when the Democrats had 2/3 majority in both houses and would be able to do that without any Republican support. So we beat that back a couple of years ago. Now we're facing things such as AB 1726, which are backdoor approaches to incrementally get affirmative action back into schools.
And also systematically.
Correct.
Systematically. If you just mentioned about AB and SA 5 going against the 209, right? And this 1726 sounds as going against 209 too.
Right.
Because when 209 is overturned, so the affirmative action comes in force. It comes in force, and then we're back to page number 1. Am I right? However, When we say, once again, my same philosophy when I started the whole thing, when there's a bill, there must be a call behind it. So there, the representatives representing us, without us having to speak anything in front of the podium, they did it. They do it for us. Okay, here goes the bill, represent it. What we're talking about, we see the reverse. We see the bill, we look around behind the bill, we can't find anything behind it. That is the problem. Now, you mentioned something very, very key point, like knocking the head on the nail, though. When this is applied to, say, medication, right? I have a blood pressure that goes from 120 versus 80, and to Caucasians, sometimes 128, 25 is still okay versus what, 75. Okay, to doctors, they may judge by look at your face, or look at your gender, look at your references, they will make a medical difference. That makes sense. To schools, I'm confused. Why? In schools, in terms of education, we're always talking about elite, regardless who you are, regardless what kind of eye, what kind of face, what kind of color you have, whatever. So, Senator, your take, please, sir. We are confused. This is where we get lost. Well, that I said at the end.
Let me try to wear the hat of the people that are pushing AB 1726 right now. So if you drill down on the API community, if you do what they want to do, and that is take this data and split it out into all the groups that make up the API community. If you look at Hawaiians, on the health aspect, they have a very high diabetes, right? They tend to be a little bigger and stuff. So they have different issues from skinny Japanese that eat the very high fish diet or whatever, you know. So you can see the health issue, as you pointed out.
Yeah.
When it comes to education, you look at the Cambodians, Hawaiians also, Laotians, Hmong. There's a very low high school completion rate and even a smaller college attendance or graduation rate. Now you compare, say, those groups to Chinese and Japanese that have a very high school completion rate, very high college rate. So you can see some differences within the API community. That's why they want to split it out, but it goes back to, okay, these people are not graduating at the level they should, they're not getting into college like they should, but does gathering data help that, or should we just be doing a better job educating from kindergarten through high school? Why do we have to artificially say, we want more of these, we want less of these? Because that's what it comes out to, and that's why you see such a pushback in the Chinese community.
Very well said, very well said. And it always comes down at the end of the day to one point, that what is education? Okay, what does education do? What does education pick? The elite or a banner like being equal, like that? So, in other words, we're talking about being politically right. Oh, by the way, whatever I say, I have to make a declaration, represents my own self as my personal opinion. It doesn't do anything to the organization, neither does it to the show that I'm hosting. It is a personal opinion of Jack Z. Chow, to be precise. Okay? Now,
good.
Back to the point. The point is that education is a different thing. Education is not a government.
Right.
Am I right?
Yeah, education is something that if I'm a surgeon, I've come through a tremendous educational process. Do you want the best and the brightest, or do you want the one that is underrepresented as a doctor, and so we artificially help them come up, right? We want our best and our brightest. We want the best scientists to develop our whatever programs we're doing, and all of that. So while you want to break the chain of poverty, you want to break the chain of families not being educated, I believe when you get to the college level, you definitely need to be merit-based, because that does encourage the rest of them to aspire to get into college, right? And to motivate and reward the best and the brightest and the hardest working.
Look at the problem, same problem from the other end though. When you go see a doctor, you want to see an elite out of Harvard Medical? Or you want to see somebody who represents whatever islander, whoever, I represented 0.35. How about that, right? What do you do? What do you decide? Who you want to treat? I mean, who you want to treat you, like that kind, right? So the answer is easy. I believe even a 3-year-old knows how to do, what to do, right?
I want to know when I go to a doctor that regardless of what their ethnic background is or their racial or country of origin, that they have the best top training, and they're going to represent the top 1% of the educational, because our lives are so important.
You're right. And they are elites. And among the elites, you want to pick up the one who is very top, always like
Absolutely.
that case, right? And then situations like this and things like always, if you go to go shopping, right? You want to pick up an item amongst the other items which is the best. You don't want to say, look around. I don't see anything produced in the Philippines. Let's get something from Philippines. Let's make it fair. Make it all represented. I believe there is another country which is not El Salvador, for example, not equally represented. Let's look around for something of El Salvador. You don't do that way. You don't shop that way, do you?
No.
Why do we do our politics that way? So this is where I say we get lost, sir, please.
Well, I can't answer that because I'm with you on this. I do believe that we need to be colorblind, racial blind. We need to focus on elevating the best and the brightest, the hardest working. And I think that when we have a society that rewards hard work and all of that, we will have a product that continues to make us the #1 nation in the world.
Well, if that goes on, I doubt. At least California, we're not #1 state of the nation. Well, I really doubt, because we confuse ourselves. Sometimes we bind ourselves, put ourselves shackles, handcuffs on ourselves, and sometimes we put handcuffs and shackles together so that we can even stand up straight like that. So that is the problem. My dear audiences, today I'm getting a little excited touching the problems because I myself consider problematic anyway, because I am in the middle of a big problem. Talking about a big problem, AB1726 is my good friend, my backbone, Senator Bob Huff of California. Very sadly, he's terming out this year. And I really wish if we would have a choice to do something differently, I would first extend the terms like that. Well, we'll do that, okay? Yeah. Somebody with brain, with experience, with everything to the extent like a beautifully cooked, ready to go, right? Then I'm sorry, you got the term out. Well, that is another side of our politics. So stay with us, please. Hello, my dear folks, my dear lovely friend, ladies and gentlemen of California, my fellow Californians. Well, anyway, you like me, I know, and lots of people, at least a majority of you do. Please keep doing that. I have no problem with it. I will only work harder to get more people confirm me, right, like that. Because I got a better job, easier job to do, rather than being a senator. And you have only 6 years. I can be here for 16 years, for 60 years, if I still can talk. All right? So anyway, so with my better job, I have better questions to ask. My good friend, backbone friend, Senator of California, Bob Huff, to whom we owe a wonderful, big appreciation for his leadership, for his service during his terms. All right? So. For that, we want to put our hands together.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, sir. With respect, lots of respect. I sometimes, especially entering this 21st century, keep on getting myself confused with lots of things. And take this one, AB1726, that is another one. And when my intern, my assistant asked me how to name the title of today's show, though, without thinking, I said, what's behind it? As a matter of fact, I was not exactly naming a show. I'm thinking about, speaking of my mind, what's behind it? Sir, probably that is a question that a man confused has to ask you. There must be something behind. Like I said, if I look back into the bill, I don't see anything behind it. So what is behind, please, sir?
And what they tell us is not necessarily behind it also, right? They talk about the health issue, they talk about, and I could see that actually. They talk about conforming to the U.S. Census, okay, but how you apply it is the real question.
Yeah.
So we had a very similar bill last year that went through the process. I supported that, as did just about everybody, because the community, the Chinese community, had not, raised the red flag on it. When they did this year, I bailed off it. I've been fighting against it. But last year, that bill made it to the governor's office. He vetoed the bill. And what he said was, just gathering data is one thing. The wisdom to know what to do with it is another.
All right.
And right? Because that comes back down to the application. How are you going to use it?
Beautiful, yes.
So because we can't know their mind, they're not actually communicating, we have to look behind the curtain and try to figure it out. And I do believe it's a backdoor attempt to implement affirmative action. Now they say they need the data, and yet there's an article that just came out saying that the federal government was, in fact, we have federal...
Yeah, which is one I just read.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So even Representative Judy Chu and some of the congressional delegation have asked California to basically gather some more data. They can have $400,000, I believe the amount was, to help do it. And the Department of Education, one of the deputy superintendents said, the schools already gather plenty of information and the money's not enough. Well, if they already gather plenty of information, that begs the question, why do we need AB 1726?
All right.
The response is we don't.
Okay. And plus, on this job for this many years, I learned one thing, which is represented by a proverb. If you can't find it, follow the money. That's the biggest proverb I've learned here. So apply that proverb to the situation though. When I fail to find anything behind it, is there any money behind it? Because I'm not saying this, I'm not thinking of myself, because lots of comment on the website, on the internet, says people also pointed out that for the minimum wage bill, and a number of assembly legislators received a huge payout from the state labor union, including Assemblyman Rob Bonta, who is the writer of this bill 1726. Was that true or false, sir, please?
Well, I don't know about the money and all this. Rob Bonta, if you look at his background, he's a Filipino, he's Yale educated. I believe his parents were involved in the farm labor movement with Cesar Chavez, because we had Filipino workers and Mexican workers that got some rights. But he is about social engineering, the best I can see. And so you have to look back at the poorer aspects of the API grouping do tend to be the Hmong, the Laos, the Cambodians, the Pacific Islanders, when you get into the Tongans, the Hawaiians. So it may not be about money per se, it may be about trying to right a wrong. And that's probably, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say that's what it is. But it still comes back, when you're going to right a wrong, do you disadvantage another community to lift up this one? And I think the answer is no.
That is, thank you very much, sir. That is a very kind analysis. That is very grassrooted analysis. But my philosophy is that everybody can be sitting on a seat as assembly. Assemblyman must have a higher IQ than me.
Well, you haven't been up there lately then. Sorry.
Yeah, you get confused once, right?
I did get confused.
Good. But the thing is that once he was so smart to create a bill like that, was he capable or able to think about the application of it? What for?
Well, I think they are thinking of the application, they're just not sharing it with us. They're selling us on the idea of the medical, but they have a whole different agenda, is my belief.
That's exactly where we get lost. That exactly when I say I can't see anything when I look behind it, right? Okay. Now, if money is the past, we can skip it because we do not have some hard evidence, right? So another possibility, there is also a comment on the internet says, looking across the country of the United States of America and looking around us in California with the reconfirmation of same-sex marriage with the unisex bathrooms, also known as the third bathrooms, and with the minimum wage, regardless of how employers would survive and the business being kicked out of California, and again with the SA5, and now with the 1726, plus with abortion rights, LBGT, parentheses Q, parentheses A, parentheses W, whatever, rights. Where are we heading, sir, please?
Well, the short answer is, I don't know, not in a good direction, but the longer answer is every society evolves. And in a democracy like the United States, you evolve into the direction of whatever the majority wants to. Certainly around the turn of the 19th century, if you showed an ankle, that was like a terrible, egregious thing. Well, we've gone way beyond ankle 100 years later, right? So society changes, it evolves, and we have much more push on equality of everybody, even if it means violating somebody else's rights on which bathroom you can choose. So it's just a matter of people need to speak up. If you share values that are different from the way your legislators are, then you got to get involved in the process. You have to be vocal. You have to vote for the people that do share your values, and you'll have a much better job of having representatives that you can agree with.
It is. Oh, thank you very much, sir. That is a way to look at it. But if we look at Constitution, we already defined as we the people. How about you and I, maybe whoever we are, just the people, the taxpayer people. That's it. We the people. We have already a prime name of it. So, and then why do we have two Pacific Ocean Islander and Filipino or Japanese or Korean or South Korean and Northern Korean, Mongolia, Inner Mongolia, Outer Mongolia, and you go all kinds of like that, and details can go forever. Right? So if I marry somebody Caucasian, how do you categorize my son or daughter?
Not very well.
All right? And if my son of such marriage, my daughter of such marriage, marries somebody who is a Caucasian, who is a Latino with a African American, and they produce a baby. And when these two babies get married and give birth to another baby, how do you, sir, ladies and gentlemen, name them with their races?
Well, it's a good question.
Is that racism?
Depends on how you use it, I guess,
all right. Thank you. I finally see some echo from a higher level. All right, I'm proud of myself. My dear audience, let's take a short moment now. When we come back, we'll find out why the echo is there, and yet we are not realizing it. It is very, very risky. I call it even dangerous. Please stay with us. All right, my dear friends, my dear audiences, welcome back to the show. Jack Chow hosting on the East West with G&E TV. Today, we are talking about a great bill, AB 1726. Joining me is my good friend, backbone friend, Senator of California, Bob Huff. Well, we're having a wonderful time. At least I do, because I seem to go into a long tunnel to see there is a little light at the very end, and I still have to go straight forward, or otherwise I just bump into the walls. Right? Let's go straight forward. Going straight forward, though, we mentioned about LBGT, parentheses I, parentheses G, parentheses Q, parentheses whatever, and we mentioned all these problems. Together, they have a term called being politically right. And sir, do you believe there is any connection in between this bill and the belief and the concept of being politically right?
Well, the bill, AB 1726, right? I don't know, Jack. It's hard to get into the minds of the people that are coming up with this stuff.
Okay.
I just know that every year we see bills like this that are just a little bit they move it an inch. The next year there'll be a bill that'll move it 2 inches. And then pretty soon you look back and you have moved a mile. But it's just been bill by bill by bill by bill. And you see it in other areas too, but particularly when it comes to social norms, social mores, social engineering. Certainly, you know, is it right or wrong? Well, that's on the eye of the beholder, because we're not a religious country per se. We call ourselves a Christian nation, but we crossed that threshold a long time ago. You know, we're a more pluralistic nation. We have Buddhists, we have Christians, we have Muslims, we have a lot of people that make up the fabric of the United States. There's no absolute document, even though in the old days, Harvard and Yale, Princeton were all Christian schools. They were seminaries to train the preachers who were the highest educated of society. That's changed over the years. So it is the most important thing that we elect people that share our values. And as values change, we will have somebody that represents us, as long as the people get around and support the people that share their values. Some of us will be upset, some will be happy, but at least you'll continue, as long as you're engaged in the process, that you're letting your viewpoints be made and you're electing people that represent that.
That's exactly the key to the door. You're talking about representation, right? With representation, they want to go in a vulgar way. When I say represent, I want to represent everybody. I want to represent everything. Legally, I mean, logically, it is right. However, practically, you're talking about different story, right? Different story. If what if you consider a policy tilt of 3% of your population versus the fact that you're calling for another tilt of your policy over 0.03 of your population?
Well, as an elected representative, I look at that, and I may have a very vocal 3% and a very quiet 97%. I've got to make that judgment, and I'm going to act accordingly. But at some point, that 3% may get very irritated and run for my office too. It's not just casting a vote. I mean, that's how many of us got into politics. I got into politics because I was representing my church's building program, and I had a city that didn't want a church there. And so I tell them, you do what you're going to do, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and then, you know, here I am in elected office, because it pulled me into the process. My one vote didn't make enough noise or impact. So I got in there to be able to make an impact, and between city and state, I've been in this 21 years now. So many of your viewers may likely get so energized by some of these vulgar or whatever things you want to say that they get involved.
I have to use the word. I have to at least, once again, what I say is my personal opinion. All right, vulgar is the word. It's getting dirtier and dirtier, and it goes down south. You mentioned about evolution. What?
Evolving,
and I call it evolution. When you evolute, you're talking about going up. That is the definition of evolute. If you do not trust me, you check with your book, right? So that is evolute. When you are going back, though, you're not talking about evolute. You're talking about revolution. You are overturning things, right? And of course, we're talking about bills. You talk about SPOC. So that's time progressively you try to make the approach to get to the point. It's the political metamorphosis. Political metamorphosis may look different, but it's still the thing, right? Like the moth. It's still the same thing.
Right.
And this is the nature of it. If I take it as my take, so advise my audience. Am I right or am I politically not right?
Well, I heard somebody much smarter than me once said, the only thing constant in life is change, right? We have a set of beliefs, and we want things to stay that way because that's our worldview. But things will change. So the question really is, are we a part of that change, and are we working to change things for the better, or by our silence or by our actions are we making things worse? That's where we all have to get involved in politics, because it can change us for the better or for the worse.
And the last thing is that what is the what will benefit the nation as the United States by going into the details, by going into a detail in a vulgar way, right? In a way like this, like what it is now. So I don't see the benefit. Does anybody, or do you see any benefit?
I'm probably the wrong guy to ask because no, I don't. I think when we measure each person on their own strengths, on their own weaknesses, on their abilities, and we quit trying to accommodate every individual, but we work for the common good, I think we're going to get a lot further where we want to go as a country.
So this is still very confusing. What is the status quo of AB 1726 now?
Well, it's moving forward, and I think, frankly, it goes next to, I believe it's appropriations, I'm not sure, but it's passed out of a couple of different committees. Eventually, it'll end up on the governor's desk, I'm pretty sure of that. So the question is, has the governor changed his opinion from last year when a virtual identical bill showed up on his desk? Or has he been co-opted to believe that, yeah, you know, I can see there is some merit? So that's the question.
That means that the delegate that Huff was leading to Sacramento did make a lot of sense because it was good timing.
It was good timing, and they certainly had their voice heard, but the bill continued on. So it's really getting that message to the governor that he just holds the line.
What to do to stop it?
Well, the governor can veto it. That's what will stop it. I think it will get through the process onto the governor's desk. So at this point,
the governor veto it.
Who knows? He did last year without any input, and perhaps he continues to do that. We need to give him the courage to do that.
All right, very good, very good. All right. So anyway, when we can't find it, we know, well, it takes some time for us to understand. If it's a thick book, let's read it page by page. Yet now we know that we don't like it. And what to do now, what we need to do firsthand is that you want to get busy with it, you want to be vocal, you want to write to your representative, the word representatives, to let them know where you stand, to let them know you go against it, right? And to my guest, Senator Bob Huff, and I thank you very much, and also I thank you for your wonderful service. That is really from the bottom of my heart, and I believe a lot of my audience share the same way. Let's work together. He doesn't want to step down right away. He wants to do the last kick together with the May, and we all give support too. My dear audiences, thank you very much for watching. Jack Chow, you're a lovely host. I love you too. And thank you very much, Bob. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Jack.